Going live. Welcome everybody to the conference committee for S.127. And it is the 28th of May, amazingly, all day. And so we're starting today. Chris, I think everybody knows everybody, but I don't know you. I'm Mark Holland.
Chris Maddox, how you doing?
Hi, Chris. But I think everybody in this room knows each other too well. Yes.
Maybe not too well.
We'll see.
We'll get to know each other
We'll get
more.
to know each other.
Better.
Right. So what we want to do just on the agenda is, first of all, it's not first of all, but at some point, I'd like to know what people's time constraints are. So we're on a fairly compressed schedule. We want to try to see if we can get this done this week, which is a lot of work. So starting right now, today, what are your guys' schedules in terms of your
I think I have the
limitations?
biggest time constraint
I
because
can't imagine why.
our son's wedding is Saturday.
Yeah.
So our youngest son's wedding is Saturday. So I will not physically be here after lunch tomorrow. I could probably stay.
No,
till
but
2 or 3.
today,
Today, I'm yours.
okay,
I'm ours. Tomorrow I need to leave about 3 at the latest. And then Friday, I could be available for a Zoom conference meeting after lunch. Early afternoon, like.
but
Focus on the-
early AM, are you available?
Not
No, okay, Thursday, no.
No,
So
Friday. no.
Friday.
Thursday,
till
I'm yours until 3 p.m.
What's,
And you have some
I have,
childcare issues.
I have no time constraints this week. I have inconsistent childcare next week, so I really like us all to be done.
Wait,
So did you have childcare?
tomorrow morning?
What time?
So just tomorrow morning is play by ear, or we could maybe do tomorrow morning. I know you had promises.
I do have problems in the morning with childcare this week, but I could make it work if we were like finishing. Come on. Then I'm in.
but in other words, how early, really, how early works for you guys in terms of how we start, like tomorrow?
7?
What?
7?
I can't do that.
I can't drop my kids off till 8 o'clock in
Yeah.
daycare, so I won't be here till 9.
9 o'clock.
I can do 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, okay. All right, and I know you can get here then, fine, yeah, okay. So 9 and 9 o'clock. So let's just agree that we meet tomorrow. We'll meet as long as we can today. And we'll meet
We
tomorrow,
can meet and go.
go and talk and get. And of course, anytime anyone, either of us wants to caucus, of course, you're great. Also, I just want to say, unfortunately, I have a tendency to have nosebleeds. I've been having them on and off, and this building is very dry. I will get a humidifier in here, it helps. But if I have to rush out because I'm bleeding, I usually can control it in a period of time. We will continue.
We can always blame it on the sun.
We could.
Gotta stop. It even no.
Yeah, great. That's what people say when I walk around with a bloody thing. They say, oh, you've forgotten to fight with the sun.
Down with the sun.
So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is turn the floor over to you guys to talk about your thoughts on S.127 as we sent it over to you and you said, no, you want to cut this.
We
So.
almost did an amendment.
Yes, we are working. In fact, that's what's actually helped prepare us for
Oh, good.
this moment is that we actually were preparing an amendment.
So walk us through, let's walk through the issues in your amendment, or if you have your amendment, or whatever
So,
issues you want to raise.
These are the issues we've identified. We'll do the housing ones and I'll also start with the non-chip ones. We have chip and non-chip.
That's funny. That's interesting if you do that. You did that.
Right. So, we actually have got a list and I'll just run through some of them and we're bringing Chris up to speed because,
Absolutely.
as we move along here.
Where did you?
Finance.
Where?
Where do I-
live?
where do I
I know
live?
you live in
Mil-
finance.
Oh, I'm in Milton.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
But Chris does property management.
yeah, so I have property management extension and.
I'm surrounded by developers, what can I tell you, and landlords. Anyway, I am not, so on our non-chip issues, the appeals language, we'd like to remove the municipal appeals language and have you accept the language we sent in our final version over to you on the LURB extension. Removing the universal design study.
When you mention appeals and sending something over to us in your final, are you talking, you didn't send us anything back on 127, so what are you talking about?
479.
479.
Okay, so that's right, so we're on 127, just want to make sure.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
but
just saying,
the
final,
appeals language.
which was just the
You just took it
extension.
out.
Mhm, it's gone. Yeah.
We pulled it and we went back to the extension of the LURB appeals, the foreshortening of it to November.
Right,
The removal of the universal design study, the return to our version of the immigrant fair housing work that we work, and we thought continue to work on your version, which you had voted out. We continue to work on that, and I understand there is perhaps a proposal to tweak that, but we'd like to start
that was
with
the one that, in 470, that was the one where you started social
we
security.
sent it back to it at 479.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a slight improvement that people have thought, but I think there's an additional tweak that we've heard about from migrant justice that they're like us.
Closer to your version that puts them on equal footing. Someone doesn't have to divulge.
So we can
Their status.
we can look at that. We want to restore the credit, the rental credit reporting piece for, and the land bank extension. We heard, I think, more testimony than you did on the land bank work, and we'd like to keep the extension that we had in 479 to November of 26. And the VHFA language,
Testimony to that effect from
we
the
heard a
agency.
great testimony from the people in Michigan. And
No, we all had that, but did you have testimony requesting an extension? We didn't hear.
no, we're requesting an extension for, yes, yes, we did, from the Department of Housing and Community Development. We had a request. Oh, sorry,
You're totally
partly
fine.
because of the staff issues, because they lost positions in the budget or didn't get the ones they hoping for, and I think they need an extension. That's a request from the HCD. And the VHFA language you kept in, and that's just a question mark for us. We had pulled the funding from the budget, and so we were unclear that, I think you left language in there that if they can do it without money, go for it. But we can't put it, all right. So, then those are our sort of non-chip pieces, and our chip pieces, we can start walking through. We have quite a,
I do have one item that I saw. It was new. The ANR report on surface water discharging.
yes, that was SNRE's, the Senate Natural Resources and Energy Amendment, and
So just to be clear, we worked on your municipal appeal language. We sent it
I
to
know.
natural resources and they stripped it entirely and put in stormwater.
Okay.
Others are up to speed. I don't know if the bill went to natural resources on your side or.
no, they did a flyby.
They did a flyby, several, we gave them, like, for example, the language on for development. So
Yes,
yeah.
we
Developmental source.
asked them, what do you think? And they said, fine. And
Yeah, our brownfields, I think most of the rest of the non-chip pieces were in pretty good shape on it together.
as far as I can tell, we're not, yeah,
So SNRE, I think we'd have to hear from Anne if we wanted
Yeah.
to consider keeping it. I can't talk about it intelligently enough.
all right.
It just didn't seem to harm anything. It was a study
It was,
or
Okay.
reporting. But yeah,
so we can hear from her again. So, and then,
And
so
again,
that's,
I just want to make sure these are things that are in S127, not in the H bill.
yeah,
well,
credit score, the rental credit score, we want
When
to
is-
restore that, which we did in H 479.
But that's not in S127.
No,
You stripped it.
it actually,
We
it never,
it never made it in.
because of the, yes, right,
So it's a more recent idea.
right, okay.
is your sentiment that we can't introduce ideas from H 479?
We're working on S127.
Right, but we have two bills going in housing, And we've done work on both sides on both of those pieces. And so that I think there's fair game for us to discuss the work we've done in parallel lanes on the same subjects.
Be great to consider your proposal.
Yes, yeah, all right. And then should we start on?
Sure.
Let's start on check.
Go too fast.
I will, okay,
We
I'll
have
do my best.
Try stuff.
I think just to start, I would say there's buckets of things in CHIP that are housing policy, economic development policy, and pure finance, ways and means policy. You have at least 2 ways and meanings on this side. Were you on ways and means in the
Yeah.
house? So you have 3 meanings on this side of the table. We know your world, and you served on finance in the Senate. So I think we can have a meaningful conversation about all of the sections. I just think we'd really like to move on from things that would otherwise upend existing housing policy fairly quickly. And I'll go through them, but I think for our purposes, you know, CHIP and the finance considerations are largely the cap, the retention amount, and the but-for test. But I'll go through all of it. I just wanted to start by kind of start there because, you know, we need to keep the integrity of housing and economic development policy as well in all of this. So we would start with the definition of improvements on pages 2 and 3 that struck us as unnecessarily specific and just more likely to leave something out that BEPC could, in their discretion that they've used wisely, consider, particularly as it might be they might be able to make a distinction as they have in Big TIF between public and publicly accessible. I think that's been a line that we've walked for a long time and helps make projects work. We don't have a lot of public money to claim things as public. So we would instead just return to the Senate version of what an improvement qualifies as, which is the more flexible language that exists in TIF already. Mixed income housing is a completely new definition of housing that just, it's not good housing policy. We let the bill go from our committee, talking to our housing partners about trying to define moderate income housing, which hasn't previously been defined. So our proposal now has affordable housing where it exists in other language at 80% AMI for rental and 120% AMI for ownership. And we brought that development percentage down to 15%, which is where most communities have their inclusionary zoning standards set. And we have a new definition of moderate income housing development. And you would have to meet a higher threshold of 25% of the units initially offered would have to be at 150% of AMI or less. Don't get me started on my favorite topic, which is the cost of living in Vermont. But it is high.
Yes.
We agree generally that we're not, you know, sending this new CHIP program out into infinity without a lot of checkbacks, but we didn't see a reason, a need to call it a pilot, and thought that could in fact be have a dampening effect on people's desire to participate in something when it's 6 years long, it takes 2 years to do rulemaking, and it's called a pilot. So we extended that back to 10 years, and we just didn't see the need. We always just allow for rulemaking as necessary. We didn't see the need for such extensive rulemaking.
Right, and I think to that extent, we had a great testimony this morning from Jessica Hartleben and BEPC about how we can use the underlying rulemaking that exists already for TIF, and we could create guidance here that could refer and use the rulemaking that's already been established for TIF. 300 pages of rulemaking.
Perhaps underneath our sentiments, I don't want to speak for the full group, is that Betsy's been a great and trustworthy partner. We're actually giving money back to Barry and Milton.
And Milton.
Hence, so, you know, we haven't felt there's any evidence to feel differently than Betsy has been a strong partner on getting us good investments in the right places where they're needed. So I just wanted to say that.
I just want to hear a little more, partly because I don't know as much as I might about TIF. On this rulemaking and using TIF, why don't I just lay out a little more on that?
Sure. So there were, I'm not going to remember all of them, but there were 3, and I don't know where they came from, but what we received were 3 rules that must be in place. And it was strange because there was a but-for test, but one of them, for example, was a supplemental but-for test
From us.
from your bill.
Okay,
Yeah.
But you said,
Mhm.
I guess citing Jessica, you were saying there are opportunities to use sort of the TIF framework.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking.
Oh, yeah. So VEPC, I mean, so we have at least one person who served on VEPC. We both chambers have a representative on VEPC. It's a very long-standing commission or board. And we have not had any cause for alarm with the TIF program. That's been in effect for 30-something years.
Right, and perhaps if we agree to have Jessica testify to the 6 of us on this, she and John were gonna continue to work, I think, on this guidance and using the underlying TIF rulemaking and being able to refer back and forth to it, but Jessica is more articulate about it.
That section felt overly prescriptive to
For
us.
something that already in large
Yeah.
measure exists in
Right.
voluminous 300 pages of rulemaking.
That specific one you're talking to, the supplemental but-for was really intended to be more explicit and how to determine if a project was going to meet the but-for test to make it simpler to apply.
I think we should be simple in our statutory language and let them get more complicated as needed, but it was way complicated. It was not simple. Next change, eligible parcels. I think it's also important that we step back and remember this is for infrastructure. Infrastructure is a public good beyond just a housing project. Infrastructure cleans our water. Infrastructure gives us more opportunities for growth, more hookups in the future for business and potentially more housing development. This change limited the eligible parcel size pretty significantly. It just seemed unnecessary. That is, you know, kind of a shared jurisdictional question. But if we're funding the infrastructure, it was unclear to us why it essentially had to follow the footprint of the development site over the allowance for parcels around that. That would probably either benefit from the infrastructure or have the infrastructure running through their property as well. Next, you may have heard, I don't even know where to begin with the statement, offered exclusively as a bona fide domicile in perpetuity. We thought what you were trying to say was it shouldn't be offered as a short-term rental initially. So that's what we wrote.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say here? Because that's housing policy and it's really not written in a way that I even understand what you want.
So, yeah, because we assume what you don't want short-term rentals and you want everybody to be a full-time resident.
We didn't specify short-term rentals in there, but it's also second homes. So we really wanted to prioritize the construction of housing for residents that would always be available for residents.
As do we.
So
So why would you not agree to that? Seems reasonable.
So either way, that's not something the municipality is well equipped to do right now. We wanted a second home tax and Ways and Means thinks that's not possible right now. I actually think it is possible and you'd use the landlord certificate and sorry?
It wasn't our proposal. But yeah.
Okay.
So tax can use the landlord certificate and the homestead declaration to make that determination. How do you want a municipality to determine it's a bona fide domicile into perpetuity?
So if you want to get into how to administer it, It would essentially be a deed restriction, that anybody that would be occupying that residence would know that there was a deed restriction tied to it, either when they're buying it, or if the person is administering an apartment building, they would be bound by that.
So administering it would be, as one assumes, one of our housing partners in those cases, because
In this case, it would just be banks, realtors,
Yes.
et cetera. It's self-administerable in that sense.
When it's initially offered. A deed restriction is,
Restriction
is
just runs with the
it
wind.
just runs with.
So if you're the fifth buyer and you buy the house, your lawyer will tell you, by the way, you have to, it can't be a second home and it can't be a short-term rental, but I don't want to spend too much.
we now understand your intent. So second homes.
We can work on it.
Let's just keep going through our.
I do want, I mean, what is concerning about your notion of it's used as a second home is someone could have a second home, but rent it out for 1 or more months. And per our existing rental housing law, that would be a rental.
So
So
a full-time person who might.
yeah, I don't know what you mean by like infinitely domiciled there. That's, so you should
So
just
we,
think
we've
about that.
identified it.
Um,
One of
All
our
right, got it. Okay,
14
we had a
issues.
very brief exchange of views on that.
Um,
Okay.
We scaled back the but-for test to the existing TIF but-for test. We're happy to, I think we could probably leave that for last as our
Right.
biggest conversation, because we're very far apart on the value of a but-for test that's not quantifiable.
And we've also asked Jessica and John, because John gave us some new language this morning and Jessica had some additions to that, but it needs to be quantifiable.
Okay, so some work on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We removed any reference to a floor area requirement. We'd be happy to continue that conversation as well. Floor area is not generally a great measure of good housing policy in terms of the number of units you're going to get. You could have a large floor area dedicated to one luxury unit and very small affordable units. We didn't think that helped the proposal in any way. And again, it's for the infrastructure, which we see as a valuable, a public good in and of itself, not necessarily requiring that it have 60% housing. We surely recognize it's a housing investment program, so we want some reference to housing, but the floor area piece felt constraining to us.
I guess what we were looking at is that as it came over to us,
Mm-hmm.
when we were looking at that, you could put one housing unit in and still make a chip.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're looking at this as a housing proposal,
Mm-hmm.
then somehow we've got to figure out how do we make sure that the majority of whatever's happening there is
Right.
housing.
Right.
It's not commercial. There can be a commercial component to it,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for us, the majority needs to be housing.
Yeah, we wanted to insert the flexibility for regulation, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. So we are with you in spirit.
Yeah, I got it. We gotta work on it. Okay.
So anywhere that it refers to a mixed income housing project, we've replaced that with an affordable or moderate income housing development. So either you have to meet an affordable housing threshold or a moderate income housing threshold.
That just goes, it's your original idea, but you're carrying it.
The definitions
all the way through.
where they go. I think someone gave us feedback, maybe it was the housing community, that the 45 days was meant to be a good thing, that you had to deny or approve an application within 45 days. That doesn't, even in the language in my mind, leave room for the ability to extend that in order to supplement your application or make any changes, have any back and forth. We really didn't see any value in the day requirement. We have no sense that Betsy is like slow walking any proposals.
They not only aren't slow walking, but they also only have a staff of 2. And towns, I think it's a lot of this is a back and forth, and that there's no time allowed for any back and forth here as people home project proposals.
Yeah, I see this as a means to a shared end.
Sure.
We're trying to address concerns of people that were saying, the whole thesis that, oh my
It takes
God,
so much time.
that you've made this thing so complex, so difficult, and it's gonna take forever. So, okay,
let's make it less complex and difficult.
Our objective is to make this simpler and easier for our smaller towns to take
Exactly.
advantage of and build more housing.
Yeah.
Let's just build homes.
but you're saying here, I'm just getting, I'm getting at what's underneath this.
Yeah.
What's underneath it is what I'm hearing from you. One, hey, Pepsi isn't slow, so why
Mhm.
do it?
Why are we putting
Two,
these
it's too
constraints?
flexible. Okay, all
Yeah.
right, go on.
Yeah. The next is we would replace the 2031 deadline with 2035 as we had it. 2031 plus requiring rulemaking makes an incredibly short window, especially for our smaller communities. It's a hard window, even if you, the concern that I think is underneath some of this for me at least, is that I don't even see Burlington being able to meet these requirements, let alone a small community that finally thought they were going to get a bite at the apple.
Right.
So the idea that someone would look at rulemaking and be able to put a winning proposal together that has 45 days of approval or denial and then is, ready before 2031 seems really challenging.
Yeah.
The $40 million cap, we are looking, we're flexible in this conversation. 40 million, I think a financial cap is economically unwise to begin with. I mean, $40 million does not buy that much right now after tariffs, after who knows what else. Like, we just don't know how much $40 million buys.
Inflation.
That's the lifetime increment retention of all projects approved within 1 year, not a cap on the investment.
Sure, but we heard that the 40 million was some kind of 1 penny on the
14 million was
property
unpaid
tax. So the amount that you use to buy a penny changes every year as well. It's changed several times in the last few years that I've been in finance. It went from 10 to 12 to
1 penny was
14.
10.
So just a financial cap, it doesn't make any sense going out 5 or 10 years. So our proposal has it tied to meeting our housing targets, which we've all legislatively agreed to, but we're open to something in between. The increment retention, we have an affordable or moderate income housing development able to retain 85% and all other projects able to retain 75%. We've heard a lot about your intent with the 60-80. We're happy to keep that discussion open, but it really felt to us like anything less than 75% makes it really hard to take advantage of the program at all.
Right, and 60% I don't think pencils out at all.
Right. Pages 19 and 20, we just wanted to make sure we're focused on initial offerings. I think what we feel can be controlled by a program that is essentially investing in the infrastructure, not granting,
This is with respect to what?
this is initial offerings, pricing for initial offerings. I think otherwise it had it going far into the future that like it always had to be permanently affordable, permanently.
So it's affordability.
So we're saying all the initial offerings. I mean, rental is a different story. It's much easier for the lifetime of the indebtedness to monitor the rental prices. But
Right, and we can regulate how much it can go up.
this just returns to the idea that a deed restriction, we don't believe is in the best interest of our housing market or the economy. And so we would make a lot of this about the initial price offerings. It would have to be in the shared equity homeownership program or get some kind of perpetual investment to otherwise require a perpetual affordability covenant of any kind.
Covenant's pretty broad statute, but we'll
Okay.
Yeah, well, dive into.
So you also, we were at 60-80, and what you're saying is
75, 80
you
months.
really think what's important for you is that the base has to be higher. And then the question is, how high do we go to create? Okay, got it. Okay.
And
The next one's the.
right. And I mean, we have love my affordable housing partners. We have other programs that invest in and advantage affordable housing. this is investing in infrastructure to bring down the cost of all housing, so that the market rate is lower. We, you know, we look at, the notion that if some units are very specifically constrained, then the rest in some contexts have to make up for that, right? So if no one can afford to buy a house at up to 150% of AMI, we are squeezing those folks out of the market by making it more affordable under 120 and then not being affordable to anyone again until you get above, 175, 200% of AMI. So this is a housing policy conversation we have all the time, which is we need moderate income housing, we need workforce housing, and just a continual focus on housing that is affordable, deeply affordable, is leaving other middle-class folks behind in the housing market. So this might be like a pet issue of mine, I'm admitting that now, but I think we should all care that when we talk about our grand list growth being fine over the last few years, what we're talking about is the reason we are all having heart palpitations this session, which is there is so little housing, there are so few units of housing that everyone's home value has gone up considerably. And that isn't healthy grand list growth for us. So what we're seeing right now is, our grand list keeps growing. Our grand list keeps growing because we're all paying higher property taxes because there's nowhere to live. So
Because of housing escalating.
we wanted to have reporting that segregated out true grand list growth, healthy grand list growth from the constrained grand list growth of continually rising property values on existing properties.
And we also heard great report from Jessica today about the grand list tax value growth in South Burlington of properties in and out of the TIF district. And out of the TIF district, the growth was 1.2 or 3%, 1.2%. And in the TIF district, it was 52%.
Oh, 52?
Yeah,
Oh, that's something. Okay.
supporting actually everything those of us who were on the TIF team, supporting that value.
Did your committees have that testimony?
We have significant testimony on the value of TIFs. So as you can imagine, there's many people that are on the other side of TIFs.
But you heard that testimony about grand list growth?
No, that was not
No,
available
that's
to you
brand new
on
today.
specific to South Burlington, no.
Yeah, we just got that, so in all fairness.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
South
your
Burlington.
idea is to
Yes.
segregate out and report it. Growth that is due to the development, the subject development,
Mhm.
being there as opposed to
Right.
not being there
Right.
versus background growth
Yeah.
of that. So like,
Right.
okay, that's a really interesting idea,
Yeah.
and it has a number of different uses, which we will discuss.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't want to be prescriptive in the rulemaking. That would just take a long time, and I didn't even quite understand what, like the supplement, all of that. You'd have to get more specific, I think, what you're
Right,
asking.
we did, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we need to hear about the rulemaking that's already in place for a lot of this. That you learned about.
I don't remember exactly what I meant, but there was a whole section on guidance, and we just wanted to make sure it just matched existing TIF policies and practices.
I think as much as possible be consistent
Yeah,
with TIF and harmonize and align.
like the rulemaking and the guidance and this is, I think, why we're coming back to, like, we're trying to set rules in statute, and that is wise. Couple more left. We have VHFA and VHCB. We see the value in having them at the table. We were very concerned about them being on both sides of the equation, both helping to make the decisions and then having projects that they are supporting and funding also be the recipient of those funds. So we made them non-voting as well, like DHCD.
We had a conflict.
Huh?
I think we had a conflict. Yeah.
Yeah.
We thought that was a bit of a conflict and felt they should all be non-voting.
So we put all affordability requirements for the life of the project's indebtedness. And we could look at how we still step off of flat affordability in the rental side, like we do in the rental housing revolving loan fund, which has a graduated increase after that, until you move away to market rate. But I've talked to VHFA and others, and we just feel like rental is really, it's much easier to define affordability in terms of the life of the project's indebtedness. I'm not sure what you are envisioning doing after that.
Just what, take a look at the language. I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
we know that VHFA had some concerns with 3% cap on an increase in some of the expenses because other expenses had increased above that 3%.
That in H.479, we have
Right.
language that
So
fixed.
we'd at least want to harmonize with the cost considerations that we've already looked at with rental affordability.
Yeah, they came to that, but they came to us with that.
And the question is,
Fix that.
so this is 479, so we'll have to figure that out.
It doesn't bother me. We did so much of this work together alongside each other, except, and then. So there we are. We'll have to harmonize. Because there's good stuff in both. And then, what it afforded us was continuing to work while the bill, S.127 was in your committee. So we kept working and got
Yeah,
a lot of the housing work sort of more fine tuned.
great.
Send it back. So that's our list of
That's
both
it?
chip and non-chip. On your 50.
This was me being quite restricted.
We went through this, yes, I mean, when we thought we were gonna do an amendment, these are all the issues that we pulled out.
I mean, if it got lost somewhere, we would not sunset the TIF program.
And so key.
By the
most
way.
importantly- Most importantly, TIF cannot be sunset in our file.
So our goal is to make this a fully functional, clear program. I think it would start off on a new foot and make it understandable and clear to more communities, more accessible. And we also would like for this bill to be signed by the governor, because we have lots of other housing pieces that, aside from CHIP, are also really important. Immigrant fair housing. We feel like we've all done some good work on housing, and we would like to see this bill make it into law.
Period. So that's a start,
So
and
you
I
have-
know.
You have language,
We do, and it is posted on our website because we did discuss it in committee this morning. It's starter for us to consider. It's, John Bray did and Cam has been working on it also, but we don't have Cam's working here. We just did the chip piece. But we do have a draft from this morning, which is posted on our website. It's draft 1.1 by John Bray. And I think Cam had worked on some of the other language that we talked about for the non-chip pieces. Yes.
And as, in Mark's absence, what we had talked about in preparation for this is looking at then what your proposal would be in the side by side, if it's not already in S.127 is passed by the Senate or passed by the House, it's almost like a third column, right?
There are just a few things in that that are all non-chip related.
Yeah.
It's all on housing.
And if it's from another bill, again, we should put it in there, if it's at 479, and figure out if we can really consider it.
Yeah. We had pulled the credit score work, because we didn't have full committee support for it at the point when we had to pass it out. So we chose to continue to work on it, which is why it's in 479. We had to continue working on it. We, just have to make those decisions at now.
I think what would be helpful would be to have a new side by side by side.
That reminds me of a song.
What song?
That Charlie and I can sing.
Say that
That would
for the
be
night
good.
show for
Yeah.
now. Maybe you got two. Okay,
Where's our
Um,
chamber?
He's coming back.
Oh.
He just takes him a minute. It just takes him.
Hopefully.
Nosebleeds.
Oh, his nose bleeding. Okay.
That's why the box of Kleenex went with him.
so why don't we? I think we need budget council to three side by sides, and then we need to sit down with them and go over that and better understand it. And I think when we come back, maybe we hear from Jess as well, to understand that.
This is today.
Yeah,
Great.
What you're,
so we could, depending on your schedule, we're gonna be on the floor at 3. We could be available at 3:30. What's your next conference?
I finished up the S12 right before here.
it's gonna take time for Ledge Council to put those
Yeah.
together and then for us.
So
to
if we
sit
say
down.
4,
And then we'll come, and we're hoping, I don't know, I can't.
What are the three things that you want to see?
So I think we pass the House and the proposal that we have on the chips.
Okay.
And then the changes that were made in 479
Okay.
that came back here on the housing pieces.
So it can be S.127, the document that the House, the proposal of amendment, 479, and then this new work on the tax increment.
Is that overly burdensome for the next hour? I mean, I don't think we need 479.
we
There's
could
just a
pull those
couple
pieces.
things that we wanted to.
We could pull
Or just
credit
include-
score
Well,
language.
just included, I mean, we just need
Mm-hmm.
to see what changes are.
So why
you're
don't we
proposing
pull
and
the
everything.
credit score, because we can easily get those sections. The credit score, appeals, the change, we don't need more language on that, but the fair housing language, we did tweak quite a bit.
Well, and that's all we need.
Right, I think those
we
are
don't
the
need
two-
all of four.
Exactly. Yeah, I
We
don't.
just need the pieces that
Those
are
are the,
different from 127.
right, and so that's the credit score and the immigrant fair housing, and the land bank is just a date, and the BHFA language, we just need to discuss.
So I can strip out everything that's the same
Yep.
and just add the proposal
Credit
that,
score, the rental
the-
credit score.
that's all good. It's just the piece I think I need to add is the work that John has been doing on the tax increment piece with your committee. So
Yes, and I think there were 2 points where Jessica and John were fine tuning it. I believe. Oh, I thought you were going to. Okay, right.
I just have it turned down.
Well, he's been,
Otherwise.
And sort of.
sadly, he also has the education conference committee at the same time.
He did respond to me about one of the. Yes.
I think it would be helpful, I think this changed in ways and means, but what you are seeking out of the but-for test.
Yes,
So, yeah, I'd be happy to explain it without.
we can wait for Mark.
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
He's heard it enough a lot of might be the next discussion.
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, but I do want to flag, just bringing in stuff from another bill generally is not germane, even though it has similar provisions. So want to make sure with the clerk of the House. Maybe want to check with the Senate.
Okay, we're good, yeah.
We may not be.
I think it actually, we'll double
Yeah.
check, but if the conference committee is okay with it, and we've all been working on it, that's not like it's new stuff that we haven't been working on.
Right.
This is to be able to build people's credit score by solid rental, building their rental score.
Even so, yeah, if it ain't, if it ain't.
Pay their rent.
Right.
So, and the other thing is not new, it had been in both bills, the fair housing piece. We
Yeah.
just, in our bill, 479, had the opportunity to take their language, which they sent to you, and weren't still working on, and we fine tuned it a bit after it left their committee. So we have done further work on what you were looking at.
Okay, again, so we'll have to look at what you're proposing.
Yeah, but it's not.
Without comparison.
Why don't you go talk to Betsy together?
Happy to go talk to our clerk, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I can, I'm happy to do that with you, and then we can also chat with Boomer, but my understanding is if the conference committee agrees to something, that's the agreement that's in play.
Yeah, there's some history there.
There is.
That hasn't.
And I have to say, as, yes, chairs of our committee, perhaps, that's like.
When did the
Yeah, I can
but-for
check.
test get? Can I hear the history of how the but-for test moved through the 3 committees?
The House Ways and Means put it in. is consistent with most other.
So it didn't, what was the chronology? Did the bill start at general housing?
Yes.
Well, it went to general housing.
Oh,
We didn't
Parallel
have-
possession.
well, we didn't have possession.
I took the
We were asked to do the chip piece. It
Okay.
started here
mhm,
and then went to the House General. And then it went to Ways and Means.
okay. And then that's where the but-for got added.
And yeah, because the basic premise is, if a development could pencil out and work without the tax increment financing, why would we use state dollars in order to pay for it?
So that's what you're looking for in the language, the difference between the project penciling out or not.
It might just be, it might be math, it might be some other things. So
Well, what are other things besides math that help you know it's penciling out?
there are some elements right
Public
underneath
works.
it, in terms of the time, in terms of the scope. So that's why it was specifically called out in the bill.
And the rulemaking, sure.
The rulemaking was, yeah, the supplemental. Yeah.
And just curious, Charlie, on the rulemaking, did you talk at length with Betsy about the extensive rulemaking already existing for for TIF?
No, I'll say no,
Do you believe in the but-for test for TIF?
absolutely.
So you believe it works?
Yes, the but-for is not only for TIF, it's also for veggie. So there are other tests, other applications for the but-for test. Some of them are subjective, some of them are objective.
What's the but-for test for veggie?
It's almost the same, that the jobs would not be created
The job
except for
growth
the,
Unless.
Or the, what is
That's
it, like a capital investment would not have been made?
those are some of the aspects of it, yeah. But that does exist already in those tax incentive programs.
Did you hear any testimony that makes you feel like that but-for test is working or is not working?
Yes, we had a lot of testimony as to the requisite of a but-for. It's used in 48 other states and their TIF programs. And some are more stringent. So that's kind of interesting to see that.
Where did that?
I'm sorry,
information-
TIF financing is in 48 other states.
Oh, yeah.
The but-for
Yeah.
test, I think, is in 19 or 20.
Is that for the auditor or who?
That's research that we've done on our own. It's also been verified by JFO.
Okay.
So we have that data.
Did you look at how any of those were written?
How those other but-for tests were written?
Mhm.
We did not. We had
So you
looked in
don't know if
terms-
there's anything you like from another state?
We looked in our own statutes
Okay.
to see what was already in there. And so you'll see it's almost verbatim, except for it's for housing.
So is it not good enough just to identify that the funding, that the increment is required in order to make the CHIP project viable, financially viable?
That could be how it's written. We received several informal inputs from other members of the House as to how to measure the but-for test. You know,
'Cause I think
they were
that's
looking at
our
the rate of the increase of housing in a particular area, if that would use that for the but-for test. See, nothing's been created here, so then we need to create something here.
So it would go along with the housing targets, more or less.
It could be, yeah.
That's kind of what we.
So that is
Housing targets and
why
vacancy rates.
Yes, those two together.
we wanted Pepsi to actually, with a supplemental, to look at more specific but-for particular housing projects that might be more applicable, as you're saying, vacancy and that kind of stuff.
But you didn't look at that.
We did not look at that specifically. No.
I just am unclear what you want Pepsi to do then. Like, look at the 20 states you looked at and,
No. They could if they wanted
I
to.
mean, I think we could be clearer in statute about what but-for test we're seeking, which what you've just said sounds like our housing targets and our vacancy rates. That's essentially how we can tell if we,
Those could be two measurements, could be more. So we didn't specify that. We actually asked Pepsi to come up with those rules.
good, we're gonna hear from Jessica, because it's still unclear to me what you all think a good but-for test is.
Well, I think it goes back to that this funding is required in order to make it the CHIP project financially viable. I think we could come up with that basic requirement with the housing targets.
I mean,
without having to do strictly a but-for.
We've talked to the HFA about this, but you can talk about financial viability at a particular AMI. I mean, but that you can't say it can't be second homes, it can't be this, it can't be this. It has to be affordable. Also, but for, you know, our investment, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, you're essentially saying that your investment should lead to these goods. So then what does it mean to then say, but obviously, but for your requirements on that program, those things wouldn't have happened.
You're willing to make a proposal, would be willing to receive.
Great.
grant.
We are
Okay.
ready to do
That's-
exactly that.
yeah.
I think we were prepped to do. So what is your pleasure?
Well, it's a side by each.
Yeah, but maybe just the sections that we don't agree, that are different.
Yeah.
Or that are added from another guy. And you're gonna go talk to Betsy and we'll talk to Bloomer before we go on the floor.
Working on it now, I presume should be able to have it done in an hour.
So 4 o'clock,
And it takes 10 to 15 minutes to print them. So we can aim for 4 and
So I think we may want to take some time to go over it first with Ledge Council.
4:30. Do I hear from?
Let's shoot for 4:30. See where that gets us, and we'll let you know if we have to push it a little more.
are all the proposals that you were just talking about, they're on your website, you said? Everything?
They're not all.
Okay,
I think a good start,
Mhm.
but it's this, which is on our website.
Okay.
And John did it last night. We haven't had a chance to edit. Like I see on the first page, it says 3%, and we didn't really ask for 3%.
okay, all right, so that's on
But
there.
it's on our website.
That's on, is that on
1.1.
the chip piece? That's sections 25.
This is just the chip. This
Okay.
is just sections 25 through whatever the last one is, 26. That's actually just sections 25 and 26.
Any other pieces that are non-chip related?
Cam is working on those, I believe.
I'm just trying to think of how to accelerate our review of the information before we look at a side by each.
And we could walk through something.
Or-
We can walk through the non-chip one.
Is there gonna be an administration dear conference committee letter?
We got it already, I think. Amanda sent it last week. And she said,
Probably not advised.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it probably would be helpful for us to have some administrative communique
Yeah.
about.
well, Jessica sent us this morning. Did you send this to the house committees too, just us? With this,
I think that would be it.
I think this would be useful for the archive freeze to see. Would you be kind enough to send it to Chris? Right, and to Chris,
I got.
what do you got? So we got most of everything to.
Also.
4:30 here, and you guys will,
We'll let you know if we need to push it a little bit.
yes. Mark hasn't come back, but I think we would
Possibly,
love to.
we'll let you know for sure. We have to talk.
Are you okay?
Well, okay, we could come back at 4 and have Jessica testify, and then Ledge Council can come in at 4:30. That doesn't require her.
I think they wanted
We
to
wanna-
be,
we wanna go
Oh, okay, I
over-
was trying to
We wanna
say
look at
here.
the language and understand it better,
Yeah,
and digest it.
okay.
right,
Okay.
okay.
Good.
You,
Cool.
you're,
All good?
you're no longer meeting on the floor. You wanna go